Okay. So welcome to the Open Space Committee meeting, the official meeting, not a work group meeting for July 5th, 2023. We're going to open the meeting with adoption of the April 5th minutes. So anybody have any changes to those minutes?
No.
Nope.
So moved, whatever, or second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Could I mention something about the meeting issue, about the minutes issue? I wondered if it's possible for the minutes to be printed and given to the committee right after the meeting. It can, of course, wait until the next meeting to be approved. But if we could have a copy shortly after the meeting, that would be very helpful.
Well,
Is that
I would say
possible?
it might be possible for if you need them. I don't know if we all need them. I know they're posted online, Helen. Not sure
again?
I don't think they're usually available right after, and Tom can correct me.
It takes a few days for our secretary to return them to me and Tom Fitzgerald at the town manager's office.
I'm not sure I understood that. But anyways, you say they're online.
Yeah, the minutes get posted, same for any other meeting once they're done. It's usually a few days after.
A few days, okay. As long as they're available a few days after, that's fine.
Well, a few is, a few
Okay.
can mean a week.
I understand.
Okay.
It's reasonable time.
And sometimes we do make accommodations if somebody needs something printed and they get left at the town manager's office. But usually we just read them online. So if that's possible.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Thank you.
I figured out how to help her.
Okay. So the next item is on the discussion of the Barnder Hills Triangle Bird Sanctuary proposal. And before we talk about that, I wasn't at the last meeting and it says there was a presentation, but I don't see it online anywhere. I tried to look to see what was presented.
It should have been, the recording should have been on SCTV. I know we had some issues right at the beginning of it, trying to set that up, but I think it recorded. To summarize, and Marjorie can fill in the gaps, the Simsbury Pollinator Pathway Group, in conjunction with the Connecticut Department of Environmental and Environmental and Energy Protection, or Environmental Energy and Environmental Protection, they had a consultant come out from DEEP, and they believe that tract of land being the size that it is and the topography being relatively flat, it's 43 acres ish, I believe, and relatively flat. They think it's an ideal location for a bird sanctuary, nesting habitat for those kind of birds. And what they proposing is that it would take 3 to 5 years to get it to that point. But eventually you would have, some Eagle Scout groups involved, the pathway people involved, the town Parks and Rec and the Open Space Committee and the Pollinator Pathway people all working together to utilize that tract. Again, there'd be viewing stands, hopefully built by Eagle Scouts. There would be wildflowers and native plantings that attract nesting birds. What first would have to be done to that property, it would need to be, there's a number of invasive plant species that have taken over that property. Those would need to be removed, however, the best wording for that is, and I'll let Marjorie talk more about that, but before it can be reseeded with the native pollinators and plants that would attract the bird species. There are currently no plans that I'm aware of for the town to do anything else with that property right now. Personally, I think it's a good use of the property. It's kind of a scenic area right now. A lot of people go there to watch the sunset and whatnot. I think this would bring, there's bird watching is a large, is a growing hobby for a lot of people, and the Audubon Society, I think is willing to contribute some grant money to help this project move forward. The DEEP is willing to provide some consultants and some use of machinery for seeding the property when it comes to that point. They have given some recommendations for how, in the short term, we could begin to prepare that property for this, which would include mowing as part of it on a regular basis, and how best to remediate the large invasive plant population that's there now. But the work group, I believe, I'll let Marjorie and Susan fill in the gaps, but the work group, I think, seems supportive of it. My staff is supportive of it at this point. Marjorie and Susan, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I think remediation is the key word. There's a lot of Oriental bittersweet and mugwort on especially the 44 acres, but we're also talking about remediating the field on the other side of the road.
The Firetown Road.
Firetown,
yeah.
And it's a significant piece of land. We did identify it in our meadow mowing policy as the only large area that's large enough for grassland nesting birds. So that is significant. Keep it healthy. Right now, they can nest there, but there will be no food because of the invasive plants. They don't support the insect populations that the native plant support. So the first step is the mowing. I think the field across from the triangle, across Firetown Road, was mowed. And
that's correct.
Next one is to mow the invasives before they set seed, which is critical. And then I did go out with Pete Picone, who is the a wildlife specialist with DEEP, who has remediated several other fields in the state. He was very excited about this field, about the size of the field and the configuration. So he would be willing to work with us to get seeds for some of these plants from some of the state properties. They do have the slip seeder for seeding this thing, but again, we can't do that until the invasives are addressed. So, but it could be a very, very exciting thing, tying in with the historical society. I don't know where is the historical society, the Connecticut Historical Society planning on doing. I know they put some money aside with Trust for Public Land for some sort of an exhibit from Martin Luther King and all. Do you know which area that's going to be in, or has it been identified?
It would be the area around the two barns that are on Firetown Road on that other field. That is in the very early planning stages at this point. What the focus is over there right now with the Preservation Society is getting the barns stable, and then figuring out what the best steps are to restoring them to some extent, whether it's roof sides and things like that. There's an architect coming up with a plan for that.
Good.
Now we're making.
It would be good to tie in the two. Certainly there's parking that needs to be considered and also things. So it'd be good to work the two groups together so they're working at the same thing. I know we did have a presentation from UConn students. They're willing to put together some nice drawings for us if we give them direction, and that's the key. They came up with beautiful drawings, but they weren't directed. That's something I think would benefit the town, give our vision a little bit more graphic impact. But it's the sooner we address the invasive plants, the sooner the native plants can start growing, the sooner the habitat can be restored. So that's it's a very exciting project, and not necessarily with a great expenditure. Once the native plants are established, it would just require annual mowing.
And just to add one quick thing, when we say native plants, it's native wildflowers and grasses, just to be more specific.
Yeah.
If you're wondering what kind of, we're not putting a bunch of shrubs in there. Right?
Not shrubs, not trees. No.
What exactly has to be done going forward to, here we're discussing it, but where are we in the process of having this happen?
So I'll take the first part.
Because
I have Peter's proposal in front of me here from the DEP. His recommendation, these are the steps he suggested we follow, and then we can do this, we can follow it any way we want, but this is DEEP's recommendation, was to the week of August 1st of this summer would be to mow that field down as low as possible. That's the easy part. The second step he suggests is to let that field regrow for 3 to 4 weeks, and then have an approved contractor use an herbicidal spray to kill off the invasive plant species. At that point, and the primary ones being Oriental bittersweet and the mugwort. His wording is those invasives need to be eliminated before any seeding or further planting could take place. He then suggests waiting till next spring, early March, and mowing that field down again. And then in April or May of 2024, bring back the contractor and only spot treat any invasives that have come back at that point. And then following that, Helen, he suggests seeding the area with the state's equipment in June or September of 2024, with native grasses and wildflowers, and or a nursery crop like winter oats, depending when we seed it. Those are the basic steps he's outlined for that. He's given some alternatives as far as helping, or given some suggestions as far as helping us pick out seed, where to get that. And then he has also suggested for the field that Marjorie referenced, where the 2 barns are on Firetown Road, mowing that one down as soon as possible. There was a smaller invasive species plant population on that field. That was part of our mowing plan. We've gone ahead and mowed that down now to stop any further spread of that. What will happen, and I'm not the expert, I'll let my friends here say that, go further, but if we don't mitigate the Barn Door Hills Triangle site, it's just going to spread, not only to the neighbors, the abutting neighbors' properties, and we've heard some complaints, but also to our own property on Firetown Road. It's just going to continue to go further out. But again, the field behind the barns on Firetown is in better shape at this point, and I don't know that it'll need to be sprayed at any point. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but we'll continue to mow it down regularly, I guess once a year at least, until we figure out how the process is going to work on the Firetown field. And Susan and Marjorie, you guys can take it from there.
That's an excellent explanation. I mean, if we do nothing, it will just become a seed source for invasive species for the entire surrounding area. I liken it as I think the term is these invasive plants are biological pollution. It's unfortunate we have to, really consider, heavy duty mitigation techniques, but these are mitigation techniques that will work on these plants. I have seen DEEP sites where they've been heavily polluted with these invasive plants, and they've been able to bring them back to functioning meadows with, a wonderful Oriental bittersweet. The public that this is a necessary. It's almost like chemotherapy. You have of some of the use of chemicals, but this is people in the invasive plant world recognize that this is when things get to this state, they do need this level of attention.
So one quick question, Marjorie. It seems like the project is pretty far along as far as the planning and have been put already in place. What is your thought about the time involved? So about the mitigation first.
Well, there certainly is money for mowing. I mean, that's in the town budget to mow that field. So, the timing of the mowing is such that we're mowing after whatever nesting birds have nested for the season. So that's good. So the first step, I mean, we just keep mowing it, but it won't improve by, we're looking to get an estimate and until we get an estimate, we really won't, if the town is ever planning on doing anything with that property. I mean, even
the triangle spraying that would be needed, and if necessary, if everybody approves, if the necessary approvals are in place, we could have open space maintenance funds for that spraying if it's, if everybody deems it's a reasonable cost and a reasonable that field relatively annually anyway. So we have that ability to do that. We could keep it on that August schedule if everybody's in agreement, while I'm not sure if we'll have that estimate next week or we'll have it in 2 weeks, but at least to get the mowing scheduled. And then that gives us to, September-ish to decide whether we're going to go ahead and do the initial spray or not.
One thing that I would say that we probably need to get out ahead with the public and post it. I know with the Simsbury Land Trust, we had a site, but we had to do a little bit of education, public education, that this was necessary. I mean, so often we use these chemicals cosmetically on lawns and things like that. This is not a cosmetic use. This is a habitat restoration use. So, but people have strong opinions on the use of some of these chemicals. So, if we can get out ahead of that, there's really nothing else that can be done with these plants. They just have a totally unfair advantage. They have no insects to keep them under control. They have no pathogens to keep them under control. This is really the only, especially for these particular plants, the mugwort and the Japanese knotweed. These are not plants you can just mow down and kill. They have a robust root system.
I have a question. Oh, sorry, Susan. Do you want to go?
Sure, this might feed into your question. So a couple of things to add to this discussion. As you may know, I talked to Christian Allen, who I don't know, but who has an invasive plant business, I guess, treating invasive plants. And also Michael Nadeau, who also deals with invasive plants, both of them in Connecticut. And I talked to Christian about what it would cost for kind of a strategic plan for the town, and then like per acre for different types of remediation. So we kind of have that in hand already. And I know from talking, because this conversation has come up multiple times over time. Michael Nadeau also uses like a super strong kind of commercial strength vinegar to deal with invasive plants instead of some chemicals. I don't know if that's a possibility for this bittersweet and mugwort that's on this field, but that might be something to consider. This kind of, it's expensive, but it's really kind of a like super strong vinegar kind of solution. So those are just two kind of things that I've put some time into researching that might be, something to think about, because, I really think that we need a strategic plan. Otherwise, it's like kind of like a scattershot thing. And unless we have like a multi-year plan that is kind of thinking about this holistically, we're just going to be, we could decide we're just going to set up kind of a defensive zone on this grassland habitat. But I think ultimately our open space plan for invasives for the town is broader than this. So I just want to put that on the table. The other thing that I really want to think about, and I think perhaps Hartford Audubon might be willing to do this, is collecting data over time on what birds are there. Because we really have very little long-term data on the success of these restoration projects. And maybe we have a few years that we see species with whatever, but we need more long-term data collection. And I think that's something that we can do as part of a citizen science project with Hartford Audubon, the Land Trust, different experts in town, that would really be useful, because these restorations projects are time intensive, resource intensive, and the public needs to know if they're actually working. So we need data collection on this kind of stuff.
So I would agree. I know that the Hartford Audubon has already been to the site and they've documented what birds they've seen come through. I mean, this is a site that they're very interested in. So I think, we've got some, very crude. I mean, it's citizen science baseline data. We certainly won't see, I mean, if we do nothing, obviously, the null hypothesis, there won't be much there because there won't be the insect life. So, I agree with you. We need the studies. It certainly would be, once it's restored, it would still have to be maintained because the invasives will still come in, but it's going to be, minor, there will still be work that's needed to be done. But, it's sort of like if you bring the insects, the others will follow. And even if it's not birds, it will be insects. I said they're the base of the food chain. So once you get, it's all dependent on the plants. So once we get the right plants in, but yes, I think the Audubon would be extremely happy to monitor. And of course, the bird populations fluctuate year to year depending on the the weather and all the different things. I know looking at the Audubon bird census they do every year, it's always amazing how they and the bird populations fluctuate dramatically. But also, it's not just our site that influences it. So it's very hard to say, well, our site wasn't or was a success because of what we did, when it all depends on what else is going on around the region or the country. You got migratory birds. What happens down in South America or Costa Rica or whatever will impact our birds. So it's hard to make that one-to-one correlation, especially with the migratory birds. But yeah, this would be something that I think going forward, citizen science they would love to come and study this. This is exactly the sort of thing that they would love to study. But we're not, even without a study, that if it's just invasive plants, we're not gonna get the populations that we could. I mean, there's certain birds that will go to these types of fields. Whether they do or not depends on how many other fields similar to that are in other areas. But we will get pollinators and local birds.
I have a follow-up question. When you consider the item, it says discussion of Barn Door Hills Triangle Bird Sanctuary proposal. Is there a proposal that already has been okay?
Pete Picone came out from the EEP and gave us his recommendation. He has experience in putting, remediating these fields. We could look into the effectiveness. I know that the industrial strength vinegar is really harsh. So it sounds benign, but it's acetic acid.
So the proposal is to be considered as appropriate, as popular, as it's a project that we want to execute. So what is the specific role of our committee in order to start this? Because you don't, obviously, from what all has been said, you don't have a bird sanctuary just there. It will take time, it will take money, it will take process.
So Helen, I think the concept of a bird sanctuary is I think more of a political one than the birds don't recognize it as a bird sanctuary. It's something that we decide, it's a bird sanctuary by how we use the land. But right now we have a highly contaminated field and we're looking at remediating the field biologically. I think that's the point we are now. Whether or not we call it a bird sanctuary, the birds will decide what to do with it on their own.
But we're aiming to create a bird sanctuary.
Well, I think that's an appropriate use, and that way we're not, setting aside the land for an ATV track or some other potential use of that property. I think once you designate it as a bird sanctuary, you manage it for that. Right now, we're just looking to manage it to control the incredible populations of invasive plants that are there that are actually annoying the neighbors too. I know with my land, my property, I spend more time pulling things out than actually planting things because of the invasive plants. It's more like invasive plant control rather than gardening anymore because of this problem, which is only going to get worse. And this is a chance, I think, for us to learn how to do this sort of remediation. This is an excellent opportunity. Whether we go with the chemical herbicides or whether we go with vinegar, something has to be done. I mean, in the next few weeks, we can weigh the pros and cons of the various options and the effectiveness. But I think we need to get it moving forward. The longer we wait, the harder the problem, the worse the problem is.
Yeah, Can I just,
Oh.
oh,
Yep, go ahead. Nope, go ahead,
I
Wendy.
didn't get to add my comment, which Susan was kind of right that I was leading into is, and also touches on what Helen says. I don't know anything about what this costs. And it sounds like it's over multiple periods of time into 2024. So is this an item that would be something that open space would recommend to bring to our next budget so that we have it in place? And then it comes to the Board of Selectmen to decide if we want to fund this, because we turned down some funding for the median this year along Iron Horse for a pollinator. I'm sure there's other requests like that out there. So that could get directed back to you or to Tom. Is that what you're thinking where this would end up?
I know the next item on discussion is the need for an invasive plant policy. I've lived here since '86. I never saw some of these plants, as a big problem when I was first moved here. Every year that goes by, it's like an exponential growth of some of these plants. The sooner we tackle it, the sooner we, I don't know that we'll ever be able to completely eradicate these plants, but we can keep them at bay and keep our habitats healthy. If we don't, we run the risk of having lovely landscapes that look green, but are ecologically useless. So it's something that the town, I think in the future, as in the budget for going forward, we have to pay attention to these invasive plants. This is one of the largest impacts to our wild areas are these invasive plants. So it's something, if we're really, truly, serious about having good, healthy ecosystems, which we talk about in our POCD, this needs to be a budget item, and we need to have plans.
So you're kind of saying the invasive plant policy is really the highest level of this, and that this Barn Door Hills project is kind of like, top on the list?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we can tackle this one, we've got to start somewhere, and this is a one that could have visually it could be quite impactful. When you see a restored field, they're beautiful. Our field is not beautiful, but these restored fields are handsome. It would be an attractant to the area, and it'll bring wildlife. Plants are what determines what wildlife we have.
I have a real concern here. I don't know where to go with this question, but I have to mention my concern is this has merit. Maybe you can tell us how you partner with a group like the Audubon. They can offer us not only information, but assistance. Maybe they can offer us some grant money, who knows? But it seems to me that something far more important for this town to budget for and immediately, and that is the ecological study that has never happened. It was something that was in the master plan from the beginning. And before we can address all of these small projects, and I'm not saying this is a small project, from the sounds of it, it's a big project. And before we can put our attention, our energy, and money to it, I think we need that ecological study. I think we need the science. I think we need the information so that the town has something that guides us. Invasives is not going to be just here. It's going to be everywhere. So that's my real concern.
I agree with you, Helen. I don't think it's an either or.
No.
If we do this project, I don't think that precludes us from doing anything else. I don't think this one will be, aside from the mowing and the one herbicidal treatment with a follow-up of a spot treatment and the seeding, it's not a huge expense. I agree with you. We were hoping when they did the open space, the Park and Rec and open space plan, that there would be more effort devoted towards the open space part and a prioritization of areas that we need to address for invasives. This is one we do know about. We can still go ahead. One of the things I passed along was plan that's done by Steep Rock Land Trust for invasive plant management. They have a whole protocol for how to do it. There was another one for Bowie City in Maryland, and their population is about a little over twice ours. But they've done exactly what you said we need to do. We need to identify the areas where we need to put, budget some money and time and effort on. So I agree with you, Helen. But again, I think it's not an either or. If we approve the go ahead with this project, it doesn't preclude anything to the other, and nor does it, it doesn't take away from a biological evaluation of the town. I mean, right now we know biologically that field is sort of a zero.
So I appreciate your putting it either or, because thoroughly agree with you.
Yeah.
But I just want to bring it back into the conversation because it doesn't get taken care of.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's why, I suggest we move forward with an invasive plant policy for the town, which goes to that biological assessment. In order to do an invasive plant policy, you have to assess which areas need to be addressed.
And I'd like to hear from the other members of the committee how they feel about this, and if it's important for us to really dig our heels in and press for that study. And that, do we all agree that it's as important as it is, as I think it is? I'd like to hear your feedback.
Well, I couldn't agree more with all of you about the importance of the Barn Door Hills Triangle and what we can do there, and getting a bigger policy on invasive plants. I don't know enough about the ecological study to know what scope it had, but as a relatively new member, I'm always appreciative of the ideas and the plans. My question about this one was going to be, assuming we found the money, assuming that we could educate the neighbors on the need for the chemicals to get rid of the invasives, what's the time frame? When would it be done? We have so many good ideas, and I would like to know more about them. That didn't really answer the question, Helen, except to say I am here because I am worried about the environment. One of my most important not-for-profits that I support and work with is Homegrown National Park. It's all about the natural environment that supports insects, because they support then continuingly high level of life. And of course, invasives has to do with our pollinators who need it, and then the birds, etc. So I guess I just want to say these are all really important, and I'm too new to understand the difference in the context of the ecological versus these two, which I think I do understand. So I don't know if that's helpful or not. I'm with you guys. That's what I want to say. They're all important, but I'd rather see something done than continue to wait for perhaps this bigger ecological project that has been sidebarred. I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
So I was going to just jump in here to keep us on track, just because Tom has a Sunday thing at the farms tonight. There's an event, and
did we do the minutes?
Pardon me?
Did we do the minutes approval? I guess we did.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
So the triangle right now, it sounds like we're waiting for trying to get an estimate on what the cost would be, right, for the spring, the future spraying, but we can do the mowing, in the current budget. And then
The mowing was planned for this year.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Okay. But and then it could lead into this whole invasive plant policy from open space, and this would be kind of a portion of it. And Helen, the biological ecological plan, I'm not that familiar with that, but that could be something you guys might want on a future agenda, if that's something you want to talk in detail. Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to speak to what Helen brought up, is that, the need for an ecological assessment was really the impetus for the open space plan that we did, the Parks and Open Space Plan. And it just keeps getting circled around. And as you may know, I've spoken about it a bunch of times. I went to the ARPA money meeting and spoke about it again related to POCD. And one of the Farmington Valley Biodiversity Project did do a relatively good job a while ago, but there was an entire class of stuff omitted from that project which was insects, which we know are so critical. So we just have like such knowledge gaps in what we have, which is why I brought up, related to this whole grassland bird projects, is we need to collect data over time to show that it's actually, that's actually helping. And so I think that these things aren't mutually exclusive. And I think there's something on the agenda, which I don't have in front of me, or we talked about at the work group last time, is our like service improvement forums, which is kind of our budget requests. And so I think the things are not mutually exclusive, planning for this work in the Barn Door Hills grassland area, planning for an ecological assessment, and also thinking about a better town-wide strategic plan for invasives. So we're making logical multi-year decisions about what we're doing. Otherwise, you're just like, it's like batting in mosquitoes, right? This is not a one-off kind of plan. And I know that's difficult with budgeting stuff, but we need kind of a long-term, even if it's just a little bit every year, we need a commitment to this. Otherwise, it's like Sisyphus.
And it goes beyond just what the town does. It has to go to the areas that are non-town property, because the town can try, and I know this is a concern for the land trust. We can try to address and clean up our own little properties. But if these plants are coming in from our neighbors' properties, who are not land trust or not town properties, we're again rolling that rock up the hill and having it come back. It has to be done on a town-wide level. I know the Simsbury Land Trust just put in a grant request to see if we can make a booklet that could go to every town homeowner to identify which plants. The information is available online, but people don't know necessarily to go and look for it. But if they had the book and they could thumb through it, it has to be done on a property owner by property owner basis. It can't just be isolated little efforts. It has to be a town-wide effort.
Well, and this relates to, I put on the agenda, I think I did, about like educational programs too. And we've been talking about kind of doing this kind of public education stuff too. So that booklet would be great, combined with events and, press releases, whatever. So it's kind of a full court educational situation.
You think it might be time to begin with a session in the library, a public session?
Well, I know the pollinator pathway group has had 5 sessions on the importance of native plants last year. They're thinking of doing, I think in September and October, they're planning on having educational programs in the problems with the invasives and how to deal with the invasives and other issues that people have with their yards. So, we team up with them, with the Land Trust, who's also interested in doing that, and as well as conservation, all of these groups together, we can get that information out to a broader group. I know they had the largest turnout for a library program for the presentations that were done by the pollinator pathway. And I know some of them they're all online. I mean, they've been taped. So, and I know we put up on our website for the open space, the information about the plants, and hopefully it's also up on conservation. I'm not sure about that, but the more we can get out there, the better, but it has to be a full court press.
Related to that, Marjorie, we've talked a few times about having a joint thing with invasive plants and light pollution.
Yes.
And I am just ruthless about the light pollution, because it doesn't matter what you do if you have lights killing everything.
Yeah.
And that needs to be front and center.
Yeah.
And Leo Smith from International Dark Sky agreed to do the joint presentation. So I don't think we should, miss that opportunity.
We should add that in the fall too.
Yeah. And I think it'll be good in conjunction with one of the plant things, either the native plant or the invasive plant. It's either bad or good bad.
Yeah. And I think, and that was the whole idea behind the pollinator pathway, is that other groups can join in. We can cross pollinate our ideas, get the information out to the broader number of people. So, whether it's put out by the, Board of Selectmen, it would be great if that became an item, for, don't we have a, a way of, reaching out to the public, that the quarterly or and, an annual letter. The land trust is doing it, the garden clubs are doing it, all the various groups. We can get them all on the same page. The Rotary is helping build a pollinator garden over at one of our properties at Tanager Hill for the Simsbury Land Trust. So the more groups we can get involved with this, the more spread of this idea, because it will be everybody's responsibility.
Oh, Wendy, you're muted.
We have a topic related to invasives. Do you want to bring that up now, Tom, or do you want to wait till other business?
Oh, you mean item 5, just talk about the budgeting issue?
No, there was an item, I mentioned it, Susan, I had brought to your attention, I think, about could we cover it under the invasive discussion, or you want to do it as other business?
I think it should be other business.
Okay.
No, I say number 3.
Okay, under other business then. We'll wait till we get to number 7. Okay. So do you guys want to move on to the POC, like what's going on with the POCD?
I think Susan just started to hit on it, so it's probably
Okay.
good to keep.
Okay, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I just had a lot of comments of things to add, and I think most of them are not surprises, but I had some, as I think Wendy was there. I'm not sure and Helen was there as well. So we haven't had a meeting since the draft was released of the POCD, and open space is obviously a major topic in the plan of conservation and development. So I had kind of some overarching comments and then some specific comments. So I wanted to think about how to sort of tackle this as our committee or commission. I always forget which one it is, but this is our first meeting since that draft document was released. So that's kind of my high level comments. And then I have some kind of specific comments about that. So I kind of want to just open it up for discussion among us, really.
Could I add some high level thought to that, if I may? I had some questions about the process going forward with the Planning Commission and the POCD. I had an opportunity to speak to the planner today at Town Hall, and he clarified some things for me, such as there will be another public hearing. In other words, what's happening next is this coming Tuesday at the regular Planning Commission meeting. They will be vetting the information from last week's public hearing. And sort of like what Susan just said, I have some personal issues that I would more than likely bring up to the Planning Commission myself. Having read it now twice, I feel that I want to address issues myself, but then we have a responsibility, I believe, as a committee. The fact that the POCD showed up rather clearly how important the open space question is for the POCD. We take up a commanding presence in that document. And but then I asked the planner today, I asked George, I said, I was wondering about something else. Why, since we are so prominent in that whole discussion, why we had not been invited to the Planning Commission as a committee to be part of their process. And he said, well, that still can happen. He encouraged me and he said, that could still happen. We can, as a committee, have that discussion. I feel that not enough of us maybe are together today, but the very fact that we agreed to a quarterly meeting with the intent that if something important came up, we could create another time for a full meeting. And I think this certainly qualifies as that important thing to instigate us to, or let's say, encourage us to, let's say, set up a meeting yesterday rather than tomorrow, in other words, but he encouraged, the planner encouraged me in that there is time. So I put that proposal out to you in that, can we do that? Can we devote our time to another full meeting right away as soon as we can put it together? Should we wait till the first meeting in August? Should we not? We are faced again, summertime. People plan to go away. So I'm throwing it out to those of us today and see how you feel about the importance of how we respond to this draft.
I feel I understand exactly where you're coming from, Helen. Conservation for the first time had a meeting with planning about the planning. We had to set up a special meeting with the planning commission and was good. We had, conservation has sent in comments for both the draft that was earlier on and this latest version. The one that was 5 years ago, we sent in comments. And interesting, conservation, even though it's plan of conservation and development, hopefully it's an oversight, but conservation was not listed as one of the groups of people that put together the plan of conservation and development, which confused us. But yeah, I think we all need to be more vocal about the process.
Well, if they said that we could do a presentation, I don't think it would be feasible to do this for July 11th, which is, I think, their next meeting.
That's
Maybe
next Tuesday.
Yeah, maybe we could request a little time on the 25th. I mean, we have some things together from what we did for the Board of Selectmen. And I have some other slides related to the presentation that I did at the Connecticut Land Trust meeting, which was all about community well-being. And really, the whole point was showcasing Simsbury as a role model for this kind of work, which is also what I did as part of the GC3, the Governor's Council on Climate Change, the Science and Technology Working Group. And one of the things that concerned me was the kind of foundational sort of framework where it just talked about like built environment and social environment.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can share my screen right now, just looking for one slide. But when we talked about these issues at the state level, it was, yeah, I don't think I can. I mean, it was really talking about like, what are the essentials? And that has to be the bedrock. And then you build jobs and well-being and food, like all these things are built on those bedrock essentials of like water and ecology and, climate stability and all that kind of stuff. And I just think that if we don't kind of listen to what the science is saying about what our communities fundamentally need going forward, this is like embarrassing for me as a scientist who has dedicated so much money and time and heart to this community. And I know that there are so many other experts that are saying the same thing, and yet it doesn't get into our POCD. I mean, it's just like, I don't even know how to express my kind of like,
I had
what are we doing?
I had the same problem with the diagram that kept showing up throughout the POCD. It was from AARP, and it talked about the built environment and the social environment, but it never talked about the environment. It's like, and you know, and yet the word sustainability was used, and the environment is one of the, you know, the three pillars of, you know, there's a social, environment, and economic for sustainability, but that's just one aspect of it. But I agree totally, Susan. It was the environment was referred to mostly as natural resources.
It's not just natural resources, but it looks good, and that's our ambiance, and our
yeah,
farms
it looks good, and it's a
and that's
natural
our
resource.
ambiance.
Yes,
And
yes.
at some level,
Yeah.
we have to quit looking at appearance
Yes,
and talk about the substance. And
Yes.
I mean, I'm very, very entrenched in the community in Simsbury, and maybe these aren't people that go to meetings, and I'm terrible about like telling people to do stuff. I didn't even fill out the survey, full disclosure, which is, you know, whatever, my bad. I didn't tell anyone to do it. I didn't do it myself. But people just want real things. They don't want fancy stuff. They don't want us spending money on stuff. They just want real life, you know, functional real life and a healthy future for their kids, period, end of story. And, you know, that's kind of the deal. And I just feel like we're kind of doing stuff and at some level kind of missing the boat. And I'm just going to share this one, let me see, this one slide of, you know, what we called multi-solving at the state level, which is from MIT, Climate Interactive. And it talks about like at the center of everything is like including everyone, diverse perspectives and equity. That means all ages, abilities, all of that kind of stuff, right? Like no one's happy if some people are getting screwed. So that's one thing. Climate protection, you know, we have to keep the environment stable enough for us to function. And there's no climate protection without ecological integrity. So all these other petals of this flower, which includes energy and healthy environments and jobs and food and all that, depends on these bedrock values. And what concerns me, and Simsbury is not alone in this, is that every town is making plans that do not include these fundamental essentials. So who's taking care of it? That's the problem. Who's taking care of these fundamental things? It's not just about how things look. It's how they're actually supporting life on Earth. And, you know, I've made these comments very bluntly at CEQ, the Council for Environmental Quality at the state level, that DEEP has 3 missions: energy, environment, and economics. And the problem is that they consider them at best all equally, or they consider energy and economics above environment. And who is taking care of the environment, which is what we all need. I mean, we really need to get really serious about what are our lifelines. And that is a science-based question that is not being queried and translated to the community level. And I did my absolute best in my report on the GC3 to try and make community-based plans that are extremely practical. If anyone knows me, I'm a total cheapskate. So I'm not looking to spend money. I'm always looking at like really practical, crafty solutions, you know, extremely protective of our brain health, which we're not doing anything if we don't keep our brains in good shape, extremely protective of our clean water and the things that we all need. And it's just like we're so distracted by other stuff that we can't seem to think about this. It's painful for me. And I admitted that at the POCD meeting. I don't know if people don't understand what I'm talking about, are pretending they don't understand, or don't care. And I really hope that none of the above are true. And I'm going to pray that in our town, we can be a leader about really thinking about this stuff. And so that's why in the POCD, I really want these things conceptually integrated into the narrative about the POCD. There's like specific things that I could edit, right? But conceptually, if this is a 10-year plan, which is what it's intended to be, we need to hew to these fundamental building blocks.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Whether or not we as a committee feel that we really have something worthwhile to bring to the process, let's do it. In order for us to do that, I think we have to be together for one important meeting to prepare for this, because you don't want to take the message unless you are fully informed as a group. And I appreciate that. That's what I was looking for, whether or not we feel we have an important thing to say. And since I like the science that I've heard from all of you, and I just would like to make a proposal. Can we have this discussion again with a regular meeting? Find out how many people can attend. Do we give out, because it is vacation time, can we put together some possible dates and then have collectively to commit themselves to be there, because this is so important, and do it within this month so that we have an opportunity to make this a formidable presentation to the Planning Commission. Sooner than later. This is too important to me. And I think from what I hear from you, it is also to you.
Are you talking more about doing a presentation, or are you talking about kind of a joint meeting with planning? To just have them and you guys at the table?
I think we as a committee have to make that decision. Do we have enough people to vote today? Do we have enough people present today to
We
make
have
it
5 out of the 9, so yes.
And do we have a quorum?
Yep.
Okay, so are you willing to come up with to say, we will meet and this is what we're going to meet about, and give a date? It has to be accomplished before a certain date, end of the month. And then we contact with the intent that produces a presentation with hard work. If we can do some homework before and bring it to that meeting, where do we make our best effort and then make a presentation or request a joint meeting? I think a joint meeting would be better, because then we take control of our thinking and help present it collectively.
I think a presentation at a joint meeting is a good idea, but we would need some prep time. I don't know if we can do our prep thing and then have the presentation at the July, whatever, 25th, I think, meeting, which would be the next one. Do they meet in August? Does anyone know what their meeting schedule is in August? Or I don't know. I just don't know really what their schedule is. I was just kind of surprised that they're planning on finalizing this. I don't know what their timeline is.
Susan, that's what I was encouraged about today when I spoke to the planner.
Okay.
We do have time.
Okay.
He said it's going to be a while yet, later in the fall or something. So
Okay.
We've got time, but we can't just waste another month to discuss it amongst us. I mean, to bring it up again and go through what we've said today all over again about, do you see what I mean? We don't
maybe, okay, let me suggest an idea. Maybe we suggest a special meeting of the full open space group sometime between now and our work group meeting, which is already on the books for beginning of August, whatever that date is. And so then that meeting, people can bring slides or their ideas, and I'm willing to be like the scribe or whatever and try and, put together kind of a working thing. And then maybe we can finalize that in the working group meeting in August, beginning of August, and get on the next planning commission meeting after that. Would that make sense? Then we only have to book one special meeting but it gives us our ideas, finalize our ideas, and then get together with planning.
But may I suggest that we get together with planning after September 1st?
Sure, I'm not in a rush. I'm just trying
Okay.
to, sure,
Just to
that's fine.
Just to maximize our opportunity to have all of them there as well.
Sure. I can just fill in the blanks for you real quick here. August 2nd is your next work group meeting. If you choose to hold it that day, you could do a special meeting. I most likely will be out of, I know I'm going to be out of town that day. That doesn't mean you can't have a meeting. The Planning Commission meeting after July 25th, they only meet once in August on the 4th Tuesday, which is August 22nd. They then meet again on Tuesday, September 12th and Tuesday, September 26th.
Go back to those last two dates.
Tuesday, September 12th and Tuesday, September 26th are
Thank you.
their September planning meetings. And Helen, it sounds like you know more than I or Susan as far as what their timeline is for approvals. Or maybe Marjorie knows too. I don't know, but Bryce might have, I'm sorry, not Bryce, Aaron Levitt may have a better idea as well from your group.
Did you ask me a question just now?
No, I did not. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do that. Let's propose a special meeting like Susan, you suggested, and a work meeting. That's 2.
Susan, you're muted, Susan.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. I guess one of those could be August 2nd, which is already on our books, right? So we would just need another meeting besides August 2nd. Does that make sense?
Correct.
What's our next meeting after August 2nd? It's September, early September, right?
6th. It would be the 6th if you go by the calendar.
Okay. Well, if we're not going to meet with planning until their meetings are not until September 12th and 26th, we could use our meetings on August 2nd and September 6th to pull this together. If we wanted to send around like some draft stuff, Tom, can we send those to you and you send those out to everybody? How does that work? I just try and be careful about that.
Yeah, I believe anything you'd like distributed to the group has to come to either myself or Tom Fitzgerald for distribution to the group.
Okay. To do something in between those two things. I'm just noticing that we do have 2 meetings before we would want to possibly talk to planning, and I'm open to what other people think about that. I'm just trying to be practical.
Well, to your practical thought, we need the whole commission, if at all possible, for one of these meetings, correct?
Neither of these meetings are full commission meetings, Helen.
Correct, but we can designate them by designating them a special meeting.
That's correct.
Yes. Well, tell me if I'm wrong, but
No, you're right.
okay, so we
How often do you guys get,
I'm sorry.
how often do you get a wider audience for your meetings?
Oh, I think we do pretty well because the people who are missing, all right, let's go through who's missing.
Kelly. Kearney.
Well,
Kelly
Aaron is missing.
Kelly tried to get in before, but it didn't work for some reason.
Zoning representative is missing.
Yeah.
Who's the other representative?
Aaron.
Who?
Aaron Smith, Kelly Kearney.
That's it.
I think if we wanted to go for wider attendance, we'd probably have more luck in September than August. So I would suggest we pull our ideas together for the August meeting and then aim for the September meeting for finalizing this with the full group. And then actually Aaron will have a heads up before we go to planning, either on the 12th or 26th.
Okay, let's scratch the idea of a special meeting with a special meeting designating a full committee and have workshops settings.
Okay,
And have as many people there to work on it. I will volunteer to be there. And do two workshops. And then produce what we had before a full committee. And then in the meantime, we will be in communication with Erin. You'll know what we're up to and what we are wishing to accomplish. Okay.
Ann Erickson is also listed as a member of the Open Space Committee as well.
Are you
okay.
looking, just a clarification for me. Are you looking to make recommendations so that the POCD is changed to accommodate those things? Or
Well, they're in the
incorporate?
process. It's appropriate. They're in that process.
Okay, and I think Helen, you said that their timeline is longer than the fall, but it would be good to know the date that they're targeting for completion.
All we have to do is communicate.
Yeah,
Yeah. I honestly think also is that there's really no deadline for this. I mean, we really should have a date that includes whatever input and changes are needed. I looked back at previous POCDs and they were, the process lasted like a year or more from releasing the draft. So I think, to do this right, it's not something that is like a checklist, it takes some thought and time to make sure, especially since we're doing it so early.
Exactly. We have almost 5 years to satisfy the regulatory requirement. So legislative requirement. Okay, I'm satisfied with. I'm ready to work because.
So my question is, do you think, and Helen, this is primarily to you, Marjorie and Karen, if we are going to have August 2nd as one of our kind of workshop, we want to have, and then we're going to meet with the full group in September, do we want to have one workshop? And if you want to have two workshops, do we want to have one before August 2nd or one after August 2nd?
Either or, but I think we do need two.
Okay.
You guys know best what you need. I can make the 2nd, of course, and I would do my very, very best to be at the next one. It's important.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. I have to run. Wendy's going to take over as the Zoom host. Thank you, Wendy. And all you have to do is just end it when it's time to end it.
Okay.
But I apologize. We have a special event I have to go take care of and get everybody set up for. So have
No
a good
worries.
night.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Marjorie, what about you?
I can do it if we can send our comments into Tom ahead of time. I know I already did comments on, line by line type comments. I can throw in some higher level comments as well. But I think if we send them in by email to Tom, even if we get a chance to look at each other's comments ahead of time, because writing as a committee during a workshop is tough. But if we see it beforehand, we can synthesize it. I think, that would really help if we could facilitate it that way.
Okay, I think in that case, we should probably have August 2nd be our first one, because that'll give people time to get their comments to Tom, have him send them to everybody, and then try and synthesize it on August 2nd. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think we have to do a lot of work before we have the meeting.
Okay, I agree. That's why I was trying to be okay, I can't,
Can we wait and set the date for that other second meeting at the August 2nd meeting?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
prefer that rather than set it now, because the work we produce by that date may alter our timeline.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
So are you saying that somebody like me should make sure that she's read what's posted on our website? about this, of course I would, the 130 pages. And then based on what I know and what I've heard, suggest any comments for additions, changes, what have you, before August 2nd. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, and send
got
them
it.
into Tom. We're all
Yeah.
gonna send in our stuff and
Okay.
then, kind of figure out kind of a compiled sort of document
Okay.
suggestions. And then we can kind of organize that for sort of a, I think it'd be useful to have that written down, but also to do kind of a presentation because stuff, it doesn't really.
That's for sure.
I plan to attend. That's just for me. I am reluctant to offer the opportunity for me to report back to anybody about what they say on Tuesday, but my hearing, I'm afraid I'd miss too much. But
There's no public audience on Tuesday, is there?
There
No.
is
I
no
don't think
public,
so.
I asked. There
Okay.
is no public audience. It's just, that is what their entire agenda is.
Is it Zoom or in person?
Pardon?
Zoom or in person?
I think it's in person. I didn't ask that question.
But
I'm
even if
sorry.
it's in person, even if it's, if it's in person, it'll be televised
Yeah.
and we
Oh,
can
okay,
see it later.
okay. SCTV.
SCM.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Are you plugging them while you're on them? Is that
We might as well.
Thank you, SCM.
all right? So you guys have a plan for the POCD discussion going forward.
Yes,
Let's move to the budget items for 24, 25, which I keep thinking of the future.
yeah, so we already talked about some of those. I had sent Tom some draft kind of budget items before. It might be a little bit late in this meeting to really tackle this
Okay, yeah.
specifically. I think we talked about it conceptually and we should talk about it more specifically. Once maybe he gets estimates, et cetera, we can compare those to the previous estimates I received from, I only got the ones from Christian Allen about invasive plant remediation, but unless other people have more things to add to that, I'm suggesting we kick this item down the curb a little bit.
I'm okay with that. Like it's been a while. Okay, no
Yes.
comments there, right? So
Fine.
how about the item 6, adding open space events on the calendar and the website?
I can add, I can see what Pollinator Pathways is planning that we can, and Simsbury Land Trust is planning, and we can get them on the website. But I don't think they've been set up yet, but I'll see about that.
And Susan, what were you saying about Leo Smith? He said he would do a thing. Is that Zoom? Does it involve many communities? What's
He would come personally to town for an in-person event from the International Dark Sky Association. And I guess I wanted to just check and see what night of the week. I think the Pollinator Pathway events were on Thursdays previously. And so if that's a good night, I it's kind of getting to the point where we should start getting specific
Library dates
for this fall.
Yeah.
The other besides, and I really want to partner this, invasive plants or native plants and light pollution issue, because we can't like fix the plants and then fix the lights. This is like a dual issue. The other thing is, some of you may know that I just I'm a co-author on a major report that was just released about New England, about wildlands in New England. And I just published an op-ed in the Hartford Courant on Sunday on this topic.
It was great.
I missed
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
I don't get it, Kurt. Can you forward me a?
Yes, I'll forward it to you. And maybe,
I don't need it. I can get to it.
okay, good. While I think I still have screen sharing capability, I want to let everyone know, that we worked on that natural area stewardship policy. And I submitted that to this regional database. And so basically, based on that policy, Simsbury got, on the map, on this wildlands map. And in fact, we have our own special color. Simsbury has their own special color on this wildlands map. So this is, another kind of higher level issue with the open space issues in the POCD is we are on the Eastern Wildway map, which is a major migratory pathway going through the Northeast. We are on this wildlands in New England map. We're on all this kind of high level stuff. And there's just like a mismatch between this high level national and regional stuff that we're part of and what the POCD is talking about. And I think we really need to seize the things that we have that are really special and provide the data that shows that, because otherwise we are swept up in kind of a number of topics and not able to kind of navigate them in a nuanced way, which is really important. So that's, something that I think is really, that we need some time to get these things linked in the POCD, discussed in the POCD, and highlighted more in public awareness. They don't cost us anything. They're already there.
Onward. Thank you.
And identified
so
by
much.
people as being of high priority. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wanted to bring up the other business to end, since Tom left me here to do it. He said he was going to do it. I think this goes back to the Amy Petras Farmington River Watershed Association, offering funding at no expense to the town to remove the invasives over by the sycamore tree, that park. It's a sycamore, right? The big tree.
Yeah.
And so she had reached out. I had forwarded it to Lee and Tom to see if there was a way we could work that funding and get it, because they were looking for like some sort of commitment letter from the town, whether it's from our board, from open space, from the town proper. I'm not sure what level, but they're working on that to figure out how we could accept this funding, offer up resources to cover the kind of the contribution portion without cost. So I just felt like it was important to bring it up here, that work is actually happening. And, Amy was really gung ho when she called me about getting this moving forward, because there is a timing issue to get the funding and stuff like that. But Lee is working to push that forward with the right people at the town.
Excellent. Will there be good signage? At the road, because this would be, it's a very visible spot. I think, a lot of people pass by that spot, having a sign on the bridge or next to the bridge saying this is going on, I think would be a wonderful educational opportunity.
I have no idea. I don't know if that's part of Amy's plan or the town's plan.
I think if you brought it up, they'd be amenable to it.
So a signage saying, because they have a contractor, I think already that's willing to do it. And
saying that this is funded by the Farmington River Coordinating, I think it's Coordinating Committee and FRWA and the town is doing invasive plant removal. I think it doesn't have to be a very wordy sign, but it should be something to let people know what's going on.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Well, and I think the cost match can includes like volunteer hours.
Yeah.
So
that
that's how we can meet our obligation. And I do thank you. I forgot about this. It's kind of percolating, and I appreciate you bringing this up, because the Board of Selectmen sort of tasked the Open Space Commission with stewardship. So rightfully, like, this kind of stuff should go through our committee, just to say like, okay, yeah, because who knows if they were saying, okay, we're going to do this horrible thing, like our committee should have the ability to be like, say, no, that's not okay. So yeah, but I'm in support.
when I hear somebody's volunteering to do removal of invasives after hearing about it here without a cost to the town, where an area she said is decimated by invasives, I thought it was a good thing. So I don't know yet who's signing off on that, whether you guys, us, a combination of people, but I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that it was moving forward. So.
Excellent.
And I think we can do it without any cost if we just provide
Yeah.
some people doing stuff.
Well, that was originally she had asked, even volunteers from, I don't know, from us or from you, but it sounds like the town potentially could volunteer people. I think there's a few things that Tom was saying maybe in the way, but it sounded like they could do that without issue and without a lot of resources just to meet the need that they're asking for. So I think that from the town perspective that they are able to meet that minimal requirement for the 20% or whatever by that labor. So it sounds really promising is really what I was trying to say here.
Thank you.
So I guess that's it. I have to go to
About number 6, is that something that we need to discuss or not?
Well, didn't we discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll be communicating with pollinator pathways and
Right.
Simsbury
No,
Land
no,
Trust.
mine says adding open space events on town calendar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll get
I'm
some dates
sorry.
of those. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Fine.
Susan, you're gonna keep thinking about Leo Smith, right?
Oh, muted.
Yeah,
So-
let's confer on some dates and we can get that nailed down. He seems pretty flexible. Like he lives, I think, in Windsor or something.
Oh, God, that's amazing. He's great. So yay.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be great.
That's a big deal.
So are we any other business?
Other business?
Yeah, I have to go to the community band concert tonight. Well,
Are you getting ice cream? Is Tom serving ice cream there?
Yeah, I'm going there for my ice cream dinner and then hanging out for the band concert because it's their
Nice.
50th anniversary. So, so he's probably scooping ice cream right now. Okay. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.